Alrighty. It's funny, Jayme trained us, and I don't think I still got it quite right. So, hi everybody. Welcome back to the program. Today I'm here with our guest host, Matt Weinglass from the Homeless Left. And Pasta is out of commission. He is trying to get his health back on track. So we're sending out his all the support to him because, I mean, man, last month I was so sick. So I know what that's like. But there is obviously a lot to discuss, and we weren't able to do a show on Monday. So we're bringing you a hugely packed show today. So first of all, if everyone could really make sure you're clicked and subscribed on YouTube because we're completely demonetized. So make sure you're entirely subscribed with the bell and all of that. Also, make sure to share it out. If you haven't, we're on X, we're on Rumble, we're pretty much everywhere. And Matt, you know, there's a lot going on internally in the U.S. as well. And being now back in the U.S. for, you know, a little bit, it's crazy. I'm unable to escape it, and the electoral politics of it all. So we are going to discuss that, and I'm sure it's been widely discussed. And the reason why I'm discussing it is because of my belief that electoral politics is a done deal. And when we look at the state of the world, when we look at what Israel's doing, still almost 2 years on with the genocide, we'll talk about the latest massacre. The latest, meaning that every day, of course, this happens, but it's impossible to really say that we are going to solve this problem through the election of any one particular person, because we understand the problem is much greater than who we elect to represent us every 4 years, every 2 years. That's not saying that you know, there's I guess it's I'm not trying to be negative, but it's a reality I think we have to come to face. So just right off the bat, your thoughts on the last few days of the news cycle.
Well, first of all, Fia, I just want to say I am looking forward to this conversation and doing the show with you today. And things have been happening so fast, and we need to have these discussions. And I'm with you. I'm with you on the fact that we're living in a system that doesn't work, and it's designed not to work. It's not broken. It's not something we're trying to fix. It's a system that is designed to fail on purpose. So it's actually working exactly as it's intended to. So yes, when we get excited about candidates and we see other people getting excited about candidates, I think it's our job to take these moments, whether it's Trump in the last cycle, whether it's Mamdani right now, which we're going to be talking about. But I think there's an opportunity for us through these discussions to help educate people that there's a larger problem besides whether a particular person is, doing what they say or not doing what they say, or or uniquely a bad apple that we have to get rid of, and get things back to normal, or whether they're this like godly figure that came in to save the day. So these moments are important for us to talk as we're doing, in order to maybe wake people up who are still fooled by the two-party duopoly. And that's what I think makes these moments actually important. So we're not nihilists. We're not here saying nothing matters. What matters is talking about it and waking people up and using these examples in real time as they play out to show people, look, here's the thing that's going to happen next. And then here's the thing that's going to happen next after that, because we see the patterns. And that's what we do here. So I am looking forward to this. And yeah, like you said, lots going on. We got to dive into for sure.
Yeah, so let's start off with the controversy behind Zohran Mamdani, who actually just cinched the primary. He actually just won the so-called Democratic Socialist, who the New York Times says has a blend of populist ideas and personal magnetism. And he basically won the Democratic primary for mayor of New York by a significant margin, which was expected. I mean, he went against Cuomo, who really didn't run any sort of real campaign that wasn't status quo, and people are obviously sick of the status quo. So they called this race yesterday afternoon. And so he is originally like an assemblyman from the Queens area, and he won with 56% of the vote. Now, so he's going to go on to run against an independent, but he's not just any independent. He's going to run against what's his name? Let me go down there. Let me see. He's going to run against, why can't I find it? Maybe just scroll through the bottom here.
Is he going to be going against Eric Adams? Is that what we're?
Yeah, but he's running as an independent though, which is kind of crazy to me.
Yeah, that's what they were saying. Cuomo might go independent as well. I don't know if that's still happening, but this is they reposition themselves to keep their storyline going, that they're the ones for the people, not this. So yeah, the race isn't over. He got the nomination for the Democrat, or he won the Democratic primary, but he's still got to put up this fight in November. So this thing's far from over, whether it's like Adams or I heard talks that it was going to be Cuomo repositioning himself, but whichever the case, he's going to be still having to go through a fight in come November. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah,
it is Adams. And the thing is, nobody likes Cuomo. I mean, in most recent times, besides the usual people, right? Like, he's ultra Zionist. He's ultra he's an unlikable character. Terrible policies. He's terrible. So honestly, like, it's not a surprise to me that Cuomo lost. But what is interesting to me is that people feel that Mamdani's win is some sort of, I don't know, radical change, because to me it seems very much like the AOC story, where she went up against a big establishment guy and she eventually became part of that establishment. He is coming from the Working Families Party, which has the same ties to the establishment, but it's just a progressive sector of the establishment. And that's kind of where I want to go to. And it's not because I think he's the most dangerous person right now, but the reason is people like this tend to pull us away from understanding electoralism is dead and pull us back into relying on it 100%, right? And so there was this whole scenario that broke out with Republicans calling him a communist, with even Democrats and Republicans both going after him for being Muslim, with them going after him for eating with his hands, even though Americans eat with their hands all the time. And I'll tell you this, in Russia, they give you gloves to eat any sort of like burger or any sort of like finger food. And Russians think we're like weird for not using gloves. And like it's weird to them that we eat with our hands, like, but it's never like, oh, you eat with your hands, you're crazy, you're some sort of savage. But it's kind of funny because Americans, always obviously eat with their hands, but it's just this. What I get out of this whole thing is this back and forth, like, oh, the Democrats and the Republicans are now at war again over the same dumb shit. And it ends up distracting us from the realities that are at play. So here he responded to Donald Trump's threats, I guess, to deport him. Um, and so this is, again, he's an American citizen. So we're going to talk about that whole American citizen being deported thing again. But he basically said, the president of the United States just threatened to have me arrested, stripped of my citizenship, put me in a detention camp, and deported, not because I've broken any law, but because I will refuse to let ICE terrorize their city. His statements don't just represent an attack on our democracy, but an attempt to send a message to every New Yorker that refuses to hide in the shadows. We will not accept this intimidation. So once again, we're at the point where Donald Trump is going after immigrants. He's deporting them. He's the evil monster. But the reality is, even though Trump is actually doing that, and he is actually, there are actually ICE agents everywhere, particularly in New York and California, going after people. It becomes a Democrat versus Republican thing. And that's mostly my issue with this, is like, now we're back into supporting the Democrats, back into supporting Bernie Sanders, who said, was talking, comparing the Republicans and Trump to Stalin. That it's just politically illiterate, economically illiterate as well. We're back to this whole game of, we need the Democrats now because the Republicans are so bad. And I think Mamdani is playing right into that. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, no, this is AOC again. This is Bernie again. Remember how they were able to take somebody like Bernie Sanders and call him a radical lefty with these radical communist ideas, when really the reality is these ideas are very moderate ideas, very centrist ideas. And then when those ideas are put into play, where Bernie never actually got to the position of power beyond senator, but he the aspirations of being president, and all these horrible things are going to happen. You're right on the money, Fee. This is the game. You pit Republicans and Democrats against each other, making it look like that the Democrats are going so far off the rails to the left when it's not happening at all. What is the most radical thing that Mamdani has done is saying he's not going to go to Israel when they asked him where are you going to visit when you become mayor, and he says, I'm going to visit the people in New York, the people that voted me in. So that's I guess a radical stance to take, not to go to Israel. And this is so the chessboard is set to where Democrats get excited that we're moving this party left to where it needs to be, but it's not really moving anywhere. And meanwhile, like you mentioned, the Republicans are having panic attacks right now. They're having to go to extra therapy sessions because they honestly believe that our country is being taken over, not just by radical lefty commies, but terrorist sympathizers. Like you said, we're eating with your hands. You're not from here. This xenophobia is in full force, but this is the game they play. And you can assure yourself that Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer they're loving this moment, because this is the AOC again. This is the tax the rich dress. Wear the tax the rich dress and make it look like you're challenging something and we're moving everybody left when you're not being moved left at all. It's totally insane. And again, we're distracting. What the real conversation should be about is, what the hell are we funding is a genocide in Gaza. We're funding an greater Israel project, and we're behind it 1,000%. And it's not a radical thing to say, I'm not going to go visit the place that we shouldn't be, championing as they're committing acts of war crimes and terrorism around the world. It's not something that's not a radical idea. So here we are back on this chessboard, and people are distracted by that setup, which is all theater, and we're seeing it happen again in real time, play out every day here.
Yeah, and I'm glad you stated the tax the rich dress, because actually Mamdani was supported by middle to upper class individuals more than any sort of like working class individuals. So that says a lot of where his support is coming from. And that's actually another area where Republicans can come back and say, you're just like AOC, which they really wouldn't be wrong about at all. And he's not a typical Muslim. A lot of people from the region have criticized, his going to, Pride and just holding the flag, and, whatever people feel about that. For me, it's just posturing. It's PR. It's, it's just very status quo politician. Oh, I'm going to go here. I'm going to say these things. It's really nothing different than we've seen. So, but there are other red flags that I think I just want to quickly point out. There was 2 times when he had the opportunity to really lean into that, right? Because they're going to criticize him anyway. He's Muslim. He's, he's brown. Yes, he's an immigrant, from an immigrant family. And he has these democratic socialist policies that are, as you said, moderate, but, they're painting them as a radical. So they're going to criticize him anyway. Why not go full force on that? Why not really actually be what they say that you are? No, instead, he has reeled it back. He has continued giving lip service and speaking out of both sides of his mouth. We have several videos. The first one we're going to show is the very first thing I saw the day that he, the first time that he came out in one of the interviews posts, his big lead up to this. And to me, it was just very, okay, he's not even in there and he's already capitulating. So I just don't understand how people can ignore this double speak. So if we can pull that up, Jayme, that should be this one right there. Yeah.
I know that Jewish New Yorkers, like Jewish Americans, are fearful in this moment of anti-Semitism. They're fearful, especially after the horrific attacks that we saw in Washington, D.C. and in Boulder, Colorado. And they're fearful also in conversations that I have heard myself about life in this city. I spoke to a Jewish man in Williamsburg not too many weeks ago who told me about the fact that he now locks the door that he used to close, that he used to keep open for years because of a fear of who may come in. I spoke to a friend of mine after October 7th who told me about going to his synagogue for Shabbat services and hearing the door open behind him and turning around with a tremor going up his back, not knowing who was walking in and what they wished for them. And ultimately, it's through the conversations I've had with Jewish New Yorkers that I have developed a proposal for the Department of Community Safety that would include an 800% increase in funding for hate crime prevention programs. Because ultimately, we cannot simply say that anti-Semitism has no home in this city or no place in this country. We have to do more than talk about it. We have to tackle it. And that's what we will do through this funding and through this commitment. We will root out bigotry across the 5 boroughs.
Can I just say,
yeah.
Watching this is infuriating, because from a place of being, making a case. So you're making a case for anti-Semitism being a thing. We need more money to fund against hate crimes. The 2 examples. So if you were my lawyer, I'd fire you immediately. I'd be like, you just tried to make a case for the thing that we want, but the 2 examples you gave were not that. The 2 examples you gave were 2 people you spoke to that talked to you about their fears of something that might happen. Somebody might walk in the door. I need to lock it. Somebody might commit a crime against me. It sounds like you need to be investing money into more therapy opportunities for people to deal with their paranoia and their fear, because those are the 2 examples you gave, and then said, because of that, of me talking to these people, I've determined we need more money for to fund against hate crimes. But you couldn't give us an example of a hate crime, just 2 people being paranoid and living out of fear. So this is again, like you're saying, it's important we see him shift on this, but the shift he's not even doing well at the shift, but no one else is going to call him out on that. I just thought it was important to point that part out.
Yeah. No, and the thing is, he could have taken this opportunity to also talk about the other end of the spectrum, right? So I understand he's running in New York, right? We know what New York is and how many Jewish people reside in New York culturally, historically. Yes, we know this, but whatever, let's say his election was fair. Let's take it for it being fair. He got a lot of support. He's got a lot of young people supporting him, a lot of, people that are against Israel. Why not lean into that? Why not talk about the other Semitic people? Why not talk about, what's going on in Gaza? Why like lean away from that when that's the reason you're even there to begin with? Because people wanted an alternative to Zionist Cuomo. I mean, if we're really looking at it as if it's real, then that's the reality that he could have leaned on. But instead, he went the other way. He cowered away from that. And it's not the only time he does it again. But I just want to point out, like, that there's no point in having somebody that'll say, I'll arrest Netanyahu if he comes here for some sort of, mouth piece, comment, slogan, clout, if you're going to go back and talk about spending massive amounts of money on people who literally do not need it. And it's not even about protecting them from any danger. It's about protecting them from accountability of what they're supporting, and further increasing that much money for a crime prevention in the way they're making it out to be sounds extremely draconian and true crime pre-crime type of stuff to me, because it's just we're talking about, focusing on persecuting people more and putting them in jail. So how is this too different from, say, what a Republican would want? It's just the language is different. And then we have Republicans basically acting like he's public enemy number one in spite of this anyway. So again, there's no point to him if he's just going to be the same thing as Cuomo, just with nicer words and, it's just a little bit of a different image. So yeah, I don't really see the point of having a campaign if you're just going to do the same thing, right?
Yeah, and it's like, again, not taking the opportunity to go all in on the thing that got you there. It's pretty sad to see, but I don't think, again, this isn't like he's getting bad advice from his team and you just need someone else needs to say, no, wait, maybe you should do this. This is by design. He's not making a bad move on accident. This was the whole point. Get him to the place where, and this is why the AOC comparison, the Bernie comparison is so important here, because at the end of the day, you're going to end up calling everybody mama bear. At the end of the day, you're not actually challenging the thing that you're campaigning on challenging. And we're not going to actually get a voice for the people that are voting for you, the people that are giving you money, the people that are giving you their time and energy and hard work and putting their self out there. At the end of the day, you're going to switch it out, and you're showing that you're doing that way early. Like, you don't even have, why you're doing it way early. We're not even at November yet. At least AOC waited until like day 3 before she went in and had that sit down with Nancy Pelosi, then went on The View and said, yeah, me and Mama Bear, we're tight now. And it's like, well, at least she waited till she got in. So they're really speeding up the process here of the bait and switch. At the same time, you still have the Republicans base freaking the hell out that this guy is this radical terrorist sympathizer. It's pretty insane. I wish that they could step back at least and go, are we being told to be afraid of this, or are we seeing it for ourselves? Because if you watch these clips, you would say, oh, I guess the guy isn't actually doing the thing that we were told he's doing. So it's really too bad that the right now can't think for themselves and look at the same footage we're watching. They have to be told by Fox News to be afraid. And then but that's how we do it. That's how you capture both sides. You tell people what's the emotion they're supposed to be feeling right now, whether it's time for joy or whether it's time for fear. Whatever time it is, they're going to tell you, and then you're going to go, reciprocate that feeling. And then that's how we stay like this without thinking for ourselves.
No, yeah, that's a good point. I mean, and they both do it. I mean, the left is enamored with this guy as if he's going to solve their problems. The right thinks he's the second coming of whatever, Satan. And so there's another thing that somebody pointed out on Free Palestine TV. This is coming from people who really live in West Asia, right? And they pointed out we don't always like to be the liberal party poopers, but another indicator that Zohran Mamdani is controlled opposition beyond his support for the existence of Israel is the fact he is married to Syrian artist Rama Douaji, who campaigned against the Syrian government for a decade and has been silent since the Wahhabi death squads took over the country and gone on a rampage of massacres against all minorities and opposition. So that's an interesting thing. You know, again, like it's kind of crazy because it's almost like it's frustrating because he's not even what they're saying he is. And here I am in a way having to defend the fact that, yes, he's being thrown awful attacks and such. Meanwhile, the United States and Donald Trump are calling al-Jilani, the new dictator of Syria, a good guy, a tough guy, a good guy. We're rebranding al-Qaeda head chopping terrorist. And, you know, and that's being done by Donald Trump, right? The head of MAGA. And yet this guy is supposed to be the enemy. So, and he's milquetoast as hell. And so it's just kind of like we're stuck between a rock and a hard place, because if he was actually somebody that, you know, was supportive of Palestine in that way, of the resistance, of an anti-imperialist, he would be nowhere near that seat, anywhere near that seat. And so it's just, you know, it's really frustrating, I think. And I think the next thing I have is other video. Yeah, we should watch this one quickly and then try to move on from this topic, because I mean, I think it's been talked about endlessly. And yeah, I think that's the tweet I posted later. But yeah, let's just go ahead and watch the video, because it's more of the same, I think.
I want to ask you about an issue that has divided some New Yorkers in recent weeks. You were recently asked about the term globalize the intifada, if it makes you uncomfortable. In that moment, you did not condemn the phrase. Now, just so folks understand, it's a phrase that many people hear as a call to violence against Jews. There's been a lot of attention on this issue. So I want to give you an opportunity to respond here and now. Do you condemn that phrase, globalize the intifada?
That's not language that I use. The language that I use and the language that I will continue to use to lead this city is that which speaks clearly to my intent, which is an intent grounded in a belief in universal human rights. And ultimately, that's what is the foundation of so much of my politics, the belief that freedom and justice and safety are things that, to have meaning, have to be applied to all people. And that includes Israelis and Palestinians alike.
But do you actually condemn it? I think that's the question and the outstanding issue that a number of people, both of the Jewish faith and beyond, have. Do you condemn that phase, globalize the intifada, which a lot of people hear as a call to violence against Jews?
I've heard from many Jewish New Yorkers who have shared their concerns with me, especially in light of the horrific attacks that we saw in Washington, D.C. and in Boulder, Colorado, about this moment of anti-Semitism in our country and in our city. And I've heard those fears and I've had those conversations, and ultimately they are part and parcel of why in my campaign I've put forward a commitment to increase funding for anti-hate crime programming by 800%. I don't believe that the role of the mayor is to police speech in the manner especially of that of Donald Trump, who has put one New Yorker in jail who's just returned to his family, Mahmoud Khalil, for that very supposed crime of speech. Ultimately, what I think I need to show is the ability to not only talk about something, but to tackle it and to make clear that there's no room for anti-Semitism in this city. We have to root out that bigotry, and ultimately we do that through the actions, and that is the mayor I will be, one that protects Jewish New Yorkers and lives up to that commitment through the work that I do.
But quickly, for the people who care about the language and who feel really concerned by that phrase, why not just condemn it?
My concern is to start to walk down the line of language and making clear what language I believe is permissible or impermissible takes me into a place similar to that of the president, who is looking to do those very kinds of things, putting people in jail for writing an op-ed, putting them in jail for protesting. Ultimately, it's not language that I use. It's language I understand there are concerns about. And what I will do is showcase my vision for the city through my words and my actions.
Okay. Matt, I'll let you chime in. I just really quickly want to say the Intifada is the Palestinian resistance against the Israeli occupation. It's not, it doesn't mean you're even going to go out and, eliminate Israelis. It means it's the fight against an illegal occupation. And
Well-
that's what they're talking about.
Well, see, here's the thing. See, it does mean that because I feel like it does. And that's the feelings are the most important part of the thing that we're afraid of, right? And it's the thing they mean to do. They want to, from the river to the sea means, because I feel like it does, that they want to commit a genocide on Israelis. So yeah, no, the condemning, not condemning. It's like, on one hand, I got to say, you know, he's an expert linguist. He knows how to maneuver out of that conversation. So I'll give him props for that. That's a very Obama move to do. He's very good, very, very good, like Obama. But obviously the pushback is he didn't do it. He didn't condemn it. Oh, and we're hearing that everywhere now. Like, oh my God, he's didn't. And so it's like, what else do you want me? You want to give me a short list of things I need to condemn before this interview's over? Do you want me to condemn who else on the list? MAGAs, anti-vaxxers. Who else do you want me to condemn? You want me to get? Oh, don't forget, condemn Hamas. Condemn Hamas. Whatever. What else? You want me to condemn conspiracy theorists all around? I'll do. So it's like at some point we got to stop it with the condemning. But no, he did a good job with that, and I'm glad you pointed out what the thing is that they're so. Oh, she is so concerned about. Like, wait. You didn't say the thing I'm forcing you to say before we end this interview. You got to say the thing, and he didn't say it. But no, good for him for not. Because it's like, come on, let's have an actual conversation here and stop making me have to say something in order to get your approval. But yeah, we're kind of over that whole thing, the condemning of anything, really.
Yeah, and on the other hand, he doesn't win either because he is talking about increasing, protections for against anti-Semitism and rooting out the bigotry. So he doesn't fully commit to anything, and that's my problem with him. It's like, well, yeah, he's a great at doublespeak. He's a great politician, and it's those people that you have to watch out for precisely. And yeah, I mean, this interviewer, let's call her that, is absolutely horrible. I mean, she's like the epitome of an establishment hack. So you almost sympathize for the guy because you're like, okay, like what is he supposed to do in this situation? And what everybody does that they shouldn't do is they lean away from the thing that got them even elected. They lean away from their so-called radical nature. And I understand he's running a campaign in New York. I understand all these things, but at the same time, it's like, okay, well, why not turn it around? Why saying, well, what about the genocide? Have we condemned that? It's you're not going to get somebody that fully commits on there even to that point. So that's my point, is like the whole, waiting for somebody to change politics inside the US, to change what's going on in Gaza, to change what Israel is doing when they're not fully committed to it, really is just a dead end. And people have to understand that, whether it's somebody else or him, they're not going to save you, and people are looking at just other politicians now for 2028. And it's just like endless. And so I'm just tired of it. So, yeah.
I mean, I just had an idea. If you're okay, so if you're him, you have to, like, you're Mamdani, and you're being forced to say anti-Semitism is the biggest problem in New York, and we're going to tackle it. And we're going to give all this money to fight hate crimes and all this stuff. If you're forced to do that right now, okay, we get it. That's what happens. That's what you signed up for. That's the only reason you're in this position anyways, is because you did some sort of maneuvering to compromise. Okay. What if on your next interview you say, hey, anti-Semitism is the most horrible thing we gotta solve? What if you tied the two together and you said, why don't we go deeper into solving the problem and look at the real cause? Might be what Israel is doing, might get people really angry and might cause people to hate. Let's look at that. And if we put our focus there, we might be able to solve anti-Semitism. That might be a thing, but you don't ever see anybody connecting those together. It's like you're either with us or you're against us, right? You're either with the terrorists or you're with us. And that's a standard set by Bush and Cheney back in the early 2000s. And we're seeing it play out again. It's the same script. You're either with us or you're with them. And nobody wants to connect the two and say, why don't we solve the actual problem, and then we can be for everyone? How about that?
because then we wouldn't need our disastrous military spending. And Jayme, the last part, well, Matt, you can run for office now since you know what needs to be done. The last tweet is what I already said about Trump and Syria. So all Syria needed to do was essentially, establish a dictatorship of head choppers, establish, persecution and killing of minorities, and they're going to get their sanctions lifted, guys. So that's great. I'm glad Syria is finally getting their sanctions lifted after they were couped. So here it is. I don't think it's going to be relevant for people outside of New York or it's not going to change anything, right? But it's hilarious to see, Trump commending Giuliani, right? The head chopper, while the majority of his supporters are acting like this suited up, hipster from New York is the most dangerous guy in America right now. I mean, it's just insane to me that's where we're at. But that's where we're at in U.S. politics. So yeah, that was that section.
Did they ever pay out the $10 million? I hope somebody got that 10 million, right, for turning him in. Wasn't that the number one terrorist?
I think they forgot about that one.
They forgot. Maybe it's still on the table. I can make a call. I can tell him where he is right now. I think I know where the guy's at. Someone's got to get that 10 million. I don't know. That was
you should try.
Yeah, I'll try. I'll make some calls.
So guys, the next thing this is really we really want to talk about this, because I think this is just we're headed to, I mean, when we talk about fascism, I don't like to throw out that word. There's people that call Trump all sorts of things a long time ago, Hitler, Nazi, all these things, but when we're looking at this, Trump yet again, because this isn't the first time, we saw Caroline Leavitt bring it up a few months ago. And now Trump is saying, he wants to not just get rid of all the quote illegals that are in America. And, he built this Alcatraz scenario, this alligator Alcatraz. He wants to reopen the other Alcatraz, but he built the alligator Alcatraz prison for people who are being deported to stay there. And he's now best friends with DeSantis, Governor Ron DeSantis of Florida, who they really supposedly didn't like each other, very much like Trump didn't like Netanyahu anymore. All of these things are complete distractions. But now he's saying he wants to deport some legal U.S. citizens for maybe violent crimes, for things they've done. But he doesn't know if it's legal or not. He's not quite sure if he can do it or not. But he could, if he could do it, he would do it in a heartbeat. So people have obviously responded to this, because it's one thing for Trump to threaten to deport people who are undocumented, but it's another thing for Trump to deport citizens. So I for them, it's something they were like, wait a minute, I thought we were going to be safe, but some of us were telling them that they weren't going to be safe. This was always going to come for everybody. And now they're building prisons. And not only are they building prisons, now we know that Palantir is a huge part of Trump's budget. And so is surveillance. So is, DARPA, AI, all these things we're going to talk about. And all of this is happening in cohesion. This isn't happening. These aren't separate events. They're happening in cohesion. And people are being taken off the streets by vigilantes or people without any sort of identification. They're being physically taken and not heard from. They're being put in foreign prisons. This is not normal. This isn't just, we're cleaning up the country, and this is going to have an impact on everybody. And of course, I'm not condoning what's happening with the ICE raids, but I am saying that I think a lot of people thought it was going to only be a sector of society, and I don't think that's it. So right off the bat, Matt, what do you make of Trump bringing this out? Do you feel like it's more fear-mongering than anything else, or do you think like this is a serious thing that could potentially happen, and what could it develop into?
A lot of it has been fear mongering, but at the same time, we do have to be concerned and look closely at this, because every time Trump says something, it's usually, it starts with words. Like you said, he doesn't know the law. He just says things. But it's planting seeds. And then later on, we get to go back to it and go, oh, is there actually a loophole here? Can we actually can Trump maneuver this? But more particularly, can the people that are, that are actually running things, because he's just the guy tweeting stuff out. There's people making these decisions. There's people running, because like you said, Palantir, you have, Peter Thiel, you have Alex Karp. These are people that are actually making these decisions, aligning with ICE. We know that Palantir was aligned with ICE way before Trump, got into his second term. So all this stuff had been in the works. So to just throw these things out there and say, let's see who we can get rid of because we feel like it. He was actually starting this. If you remember, he started talking like this back when there were people vandalizing the Tesla lots, and he was referring to, oh, we can just throw them in El Salvador prisons. So the seeds have been planted many months ago, and now even to have this discussion about how this would look, this is very concerning. And talking about what ICE is getting away with right now, this is not something and I'll admit it myself, I thought it was going to be a short-term scare tactic to get people in the streets, which it did. And it was, and I'll say this, it was real. People were, what happened, this was a month ago here in LA, ICE was going in and just raiding out of nowhere, going into graduations, into elementary schools, scaring the crap out of Los Angeles residents and people that actually are citizens here, because everybody here knows somebody that was affected. So it did get people in the streets. I thought, well, as soon as he gets this big, beautiful bill going, and Palantir is clearly, in that, and we're going to talk about that later, but the mechanism of getting people angry and in the streets and the protest divide, and then people on the right calling for Palantir to bring Palantir to LA, get everybody in this database. So I thought that had passed, but it's still happening now. So we still have these crazy ICE raids happening. It's pretty insane. Yeah. So Trump doubling down now on this language, and this is not the first time he's talking like this about we should just take American citizens and get rid of them. He's already planted those seeds. So we have to be very concerned where these words lead to, and the people actually pushing these policies, actually putting these contracts together, putting these bills together. He doesn't do any of that. He just talks. He just throws out tweets. But the people behind the scenes making these things happen, we have to be very careful and very cautious right now what the next move is going to be, especially as this big, beautiful bill goes back to the House and gets ready to actually be implemented.
That's a great point that I think a lot of people miss, is we have to really look at who's behind Trump, because we know that Trump, like Biden, isn't really running the show here. We know that there are people behind the scenes in the shadows manipulating things to their accord, mainly in intelligence, in the military sector, and that is going to be very clear by the likes of this bill. It's very clear by the likes of Trump's policies, of Greater Israel, of expanding the Abraham Accords, of continuing to put in these military contractors and these shadow corporations inside the government. So those were all very valid points. Now, I want to go to a couple of videos, Jayme. The first one is Trump saying this, and the second one is the Alex video that you mentioned. I added that one, Jayme. So first, let's just go to Trump's video of what exactly he said. And I agree, like, it does seem like fear-mongering, but then again, the policies behind it are what we have to look at. Let's take a listen.
I'd like to say, a little controversial, but I couldn't care less. We have a lot of bad criminals that came into this country, and they came in stupidly. It was an unforced error. It was an incompetent president that allowed it to happen. It was an auto pen maybe that allowed it to happen, and it did happen. But we also have a lot of bad people that have been here for a long time, people that whack people over the head with a baseball bat from behind when they're not looking and kill them, people that knife you when you're walking down the street. They're not new to our country. They're old to our country. Many of them were born in our country. I think we ought to get them the hell out of here too. You want to know the truth. So maybe that'll be the next job that we'll work on together. But I think getting them out, we forget about them. We had some bad accidents in New York. They're not accidents. I like to say, little.
So not only, there's two things here, because there is also a huge push to deport or to strip of citizenship anyone that's been naturalized, which is going to be the first thing before they start, I think, deporting U.S. born citizens. But the thing is, it doesn't really matter. If you're a U.S. citizen, you're a U.S. citizen, actually. According to the law, it doesn't matter whether you were born or whether you're naturalized. You're an American, you're a U.S. citizen. Many people have been here for decades. And if they are caught in something, let's say, they're accused of something they didn't do, they could be targeted. But further, let's look at what's happening now with Gaza, with Israel, right? We can't criticize Israel. We'll talk about that, how people are getting their visas revoked. We've seen that, people going to jail, even those holding green cards. So if we can't criticize Israel, if we can't criticize, the next person, if we're told we have ties to Iran, ties to China, ties to Russia, we could all be next. It doesn't matter which administration, because once that's implemented, we're never going to get those freedoms back. We're never going to, it's not going to happen where we get more freedoms back in the next administration. They're just going to be actually pulling them back, and we're going to have less and less and less. So what people need to be really aware of is who these people are and where we're going. And Matt, if you want to say anything before I show the next video, because the next one is just, oh my God, it's just so scary.
I'll just say this real quick. It's not just about taking away free speech. It's not just about not letting in people when they look at their social media and they see that they had a critique on Israel. Well, you're not coming in. When we're talking about American citizens, how you get to the point of deporting American citizens, the way you do that, you're not going after their free speech. What we're doing is you're implementing this pre-crime division. This is a real thing. This is Minority Report. By the way, Netflix just announced they're putting Minority Report on their network. You guys can go watch that film from 2002, where Spielberg will show you exactly what happens when a company like Palantir is implemented into our entire system, where you can determine, an AI can determine that you will potentially commit a crime. So it's well beyond, are you getting accused for something you didn't do? We're well beyond that. This is about looking into the future and saying our AI technology has determined that you will be doing something that is going to be violent. You will be doing something that's against our country, and it's going to be considered anti-American. And that's all you need. Once you can prove that, then you are now a threat to this country. You now will be deported, and that's how they will target U.S. citizens, is with this technology. So this is well beyond our free speech, our right to criticize anything. This is saying you're the perfect candidate for someone who will do something in the future. So we got to stop you before you do it. It's pretty scary.
It is pretty scary. And that actually was always one of my favorite movies. So if you haven't seen it, go watch it to see what the future looks like, or where we're at, pretty much. Yeah. So the next video is Alex Carr. And if you can go and post that one, Jayme, so you can hear what this guy says, because it is frighteningly scary how these people with a lot of money and power, who basically control very much of how our government functions, think.
You need a higher purpose. And I also think you often need a lower purpose. Like the higher purpose for me.
What's a lower purpose?
Well, I love the idea of getting a drone and having light fentanyl laced urine spraying on analysts who tried to screw us. So that's my lower purpose. And yeah, and others. But the higher purpose for me was to get this nation to be the preeminent power in the world, because whatever faults we have, they're nothing like anyone else's. You need a higher purpose. And I also think you often need a lower purpose.
Just two things really quick. This guy is worth $11.8 billion. And if you don't know, he's the CEO of Palantir. And Palantir is, again, it's embedded in the Trump administration. These are the kind of people that are very much making decisions and driving them, not just in our government, but all over the world, but particularly when we talk about AI, when we talk about surveillance, and when we talk about this technology and intelligence, it's this guy, the guy that says he wants to lace people with fentanyl for who don't agree with him. Like it's that kind of psychopathic mentality that has a lot of power. I don't know, Matt, like I don't know where we go from here when we have people like this freely and openly just saying they just want to get rid of people, and they think that the US needs to be the most powerful entity, and they think this is a normal thing to say, and people are laughing. Ha 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 ha. It's so funny.
So yeah, no, we've been covering Alex Karp for the last several months here, and he's been saying things like this over and over, whether it's in public, whether it's a one-on-one interview, whether it's on some random news show. He's been talking like this. It's a superiority mindset. He's 100% Zionist, working on behalf of Greater Israel Project. And the thing I think that the most important part of that clip isn't the part where he gets the awkward laugh and he's maneuvering in his seat and he's uncomfortably responding to that laughter. What's the most important part of that clip is the end, where he doubles down and says, whatever we do bad is nowhere near as bad as our enemy. And so we will do these things necessary. And this is back to the thing we warn people about, this mindset. It's very, very dangerous when we are sold this idea that it's for the greater good. So that's how he champions that he's still the good guy as he goes around the world punishing his enemies. Who are his enemies? Anybody challenging Israel. So that doesn't necessarily just mean China, China, Russia, and Iran are the three. By the way, those are the three countries he said on record he would like to have a three-pronged war with all three. So this is something that again, the head of, as you said, the head of Palantir, who is in this big, beautiful bill to be the entity, the private company that oversees our government agencies and dictates a database, a supercomputer database where they will be deciding what to do and how to punish people. This guy wants a three-pronged war. The enemies, not just these foreign countries, the enemies are the journalists like us.
Yep.
Who have something to say about it. And he has no problem punishing us. The laughter in that room is uncomfortable because they aren't sure if he's telling a joke or not. But this clearly isn't a joke. This is him saying the quiet part out loud, and he does it over and over. So this is the guy we all need to be paying attention to. And there certainly should be some pushback. You shouldn't just be able to say that and have everybody laugh and then move on. There needs to be some accountability here. But I guarantee this isn't the last time he's going to open his mouth.
No, it's not. And I'm, the thing is, this is all happening, right? Why are we talking about this right now? Well, because it's related. Trump's building prisons that aren't just going to house, undocumented immigrants. Like these prisons, this expansion in true crime, this surveillance expansion, the focus on AI and these big tech companies and these big corporations, all of that is happening in conjugation with people like Alex Karp being like freely, openly saying what they're going to do. And again, Trump is just the face of everything, right? And so again, like I said, they started building these prisons. They started going into the alligator Alcatraz with DeSantis and Donald Trump, and also the Homeland Security, Kristi Noem. They did a whole tour and they talked about how great it was. And it's just, they're glorifying something that we already have too much of. We have too many prisons. We have the most, I think. I don't know if that changed recently, but until
per
recently,
capita, we do. We have the most people incarcerated per capita than anywhere else. Yes. So
you have the majority of people cheering on the right, a lot of his supporters saying this is great. He's cleaning up house. And Jayme, if you can bring on the next tidbit, they're talking about how he's going to, clean up house, how he's going to take advantage of this and actually get the job done. Do what he said on his campaign, because that's what he ran on, right? He ran on all of that. And so the thing I want to focus on is this next video that we have on X. And I want you all to hear what they're talking about, because this is kind of important, because Florida is going to deputize the National Guard as immigration judges. I don't know how that's going to work exactly, but that's what they're planning on doing. And they're going to have a decision in 3 days, supposedly. So they're saying, hey, this is actually, more humane, because instead of waiting a long time like before, you're only going to wait 3 days and then they're going to have a decision. And so they're promoting this thing together. They're having a love affair. They're talking about how they're friends, how Trump will always be, DeSantis will always be a friend to Trump. And I just, let's just go ahead and watch what they say in the video.
This is, we're offering up our National Guard and other folks in Florida to be deputized to be immigration judges. We're working with the Department of Justice for the approvals. I'm sure Pam will approve. But then I'll have a National Guard judge advocate here. Someone has a notice to appear. Biden would tell them to come back in 3 years and appear. Now you'll be able to appear in like a day or two. So they're not going to be detained, hopefully, for all that long. We'll have people here in this facility that can make, it's a bureaucracy. The president's got to deal with the bureaucracy. Now, that Supreme Court ruling was good because that's going to allow him to be able to exercise Article 2 the way founders intended. But you still have bureaucracy. So we want to cut through that so that we have an efficient operation between Florida and DHS to get the removal of these illegals done. This is.
So Matt, what do you think of that right off the bat? I mean, their plan, the comparison to Joe Biden, is this actually an improvement? I don't know. I mean, it kind of sounds like it, how they're making it out to be.
It's a good spin. I'm sure there's a lot of Floridians that are excited to see those two buddy talking like this. They're presenting it. They're presenting it well. But I want to remind people that even now, even with all these crazy ICE raids and everything we've experienced for the last month, if you look at the numbers, he's still really, really far down as far as deportations go, comparatively to Obama and Biden. And Obama's best year, I'll remind people, the daily deportation rate from Obama, I think his best numbers were in 2013, where he was doing 1,200 a day. Trump never got beyond 600 a day. And that's counting up until these ICE raids went into full effect. So we don't know the numbers right now, how that's changed, but he was only half of Obama's. I just want to remind people that in perspective. But yeah, they're definitely packaging this well. And like you said, he ran on this. And it's the one thing, I mean, you put a list of everything Trump ran on. I think this is the only one he gets an actual check mark. That's something he came through with that he said he was going to do. Everything else is fail. But this is the one he can hang his hat on and say, I told you so. So here we go.
So I have the biggest thing I have with this is people cheerleading for that, right? And so you have one of the internet's biggest grifters, and he posted this really multiple love affairs with what Trump's doing, Benny Johnson. And so the reason I'm angry about this is because these are the people that said, we're for free speech, we're against censorship, we're against the deep state, we're against the globalists, we're against the surveillance state, we're going to tackle all of that. And here they are cheering for this. Look what he says. He says, I don't think anyone realizes how impressive Alligator Alcatraz is. The state of Florida built this 3,000 bed federal prison in 8 days. The director tells me it could have been done in 72 hours were it not for some regulatory holdups. Now, all the state needs to do is DOJ approval to deputize the National Guard as deportation judges, and this will become the most efficient deportation center in American history. Yay. I don't understand how you go from we're going to stand against the big government, right? Big centralized government. We don't want that. We want less government. We're going to stand against the surveillance state. And now we're cheering for prison centers. I mean, and not only, they're not just like cages. We're talking about legally institutionalized prisons for whatever is the trend of the month, because it could be undocumented people one day, it could be, critics of Israel Another could be those harboring connections with Hezbollah the next day. I mean, we don't know what it's going to be, but you see where we're going. So
Domestic domestic terrorists, easily. There could be just,
Yep.
hey, let's throw all the domestic terrorists that Palantir has determined are going to commit crimes in the future. Let's throw them in there too. Why not?
And so on this last part of the section, I am not going to do a deep dive on this. This time I'm going to do a separate video diving super deep. But there's a lot I want to point out on the big, beautiful bill. The one big, beautiful bill. It's Trump. Remember how Trump, and this is what Pasta and I talked about, right? Trump would always say, oh, the Republicans, if I were president, I would do a small bill, just a 1-pager, 2-pager, keep it simple. They not put any pork in this. The Democrats put a lot of pork in their bill. This is a almost 1,000-page bill, guys. 1,000. This is not some tiny thing. And I guarantee you the majority of the people who, including Trump, probably didn't read it. I mean, this has a lot of just endless things. I know because I was looking at it last night for hours, and it was like, and you're just like, wow, your head hurts after looking at it. But the Senate passed Trump's agenda bill after a marathon voting session. This is from CNN. They approved the bill, and it was a 50-50 vote with J.D. Vance breaking the tie. And there is another battle now. They need to pass it in the House before Trump signs it, right? And so they're trying to get it in before July 4th, which is Friday. So they don't have much time. And so this, according to CNN, the roughly multi-trillion-dollar bill would unlock tax cuts and funding boosts for national security, partly paid for by the biggest cut to the federal safety net in decades. So, okay, so I took the bill, I looked at it, and so first of all, Jayme, if you can also go to the direct text so people know where to go, you're going to go to congress.gov/bill of the 119th Congress, House Bill text, and it's HR 1 Big Beautiful Bill Act. Gotta love the name, OBBBA. And there it is. So if you guys want to do a little light reading, you're more than welcome to take it on and go ahead and show them the bill text if you haven't. And now I'm going to try to point out some scary things inside it. Matt, I don't know if you've had a chance to look at it, but everybody's been talking about the cut to Medicaid, Medicare, which the Senate is going to go back and look at anyway, because they're afraid they might need to make some changes in it before they try to push this through, right? And so the main point that everybody's talking about is the cuts to social programs, which you should expect if we're going to go talk about the Republicans and what they do. They tend to cut spending. They tend to cut social programs. That's a given with the Republicans, while the Democrats tend to put a lot of useless things in programs. Neither of them help people ultimately. I mean, you know, you can talk about the Affordable Care Act and the disaster that was, as well as the Republicans constantly trying to gut it. And instead of the Democrats actually doing something and proposing something better, they really were focused on absolutely nothing. They were focused on, you know, the race, the electoral race with Zohran Mamdani. They were focused on a lot of completely dumb things, like telling people to condemn Hamas and condemn, you know, globalist Antifada. They're not focused on this because why? I'll tell you why. Because this huge thing mostly focuses on defense. So while everybody's talking about the Medicaid and Medicare being gutted, it's actually the defense that they should be looking at. So let's click on the doc I have. Jayme, I'll quickly point out a few things there that everybody needs to look at. So yeah, you look at the summary of Medicaid. It's going to add work requirements. It's going to increase state discretion to limit coverage. SNAP, the same thing. It's going to expand work rules, reduce the benefit. So basically what this means is if you need coverage, there's going to be more layers you have to jump through to get it. And so it's very enraging because I've recently seen this at play where you need to for example, get an MRI done, and your insurance that you've been paying thousands a month to says, nope, I don't think you need it yet. Your doctor needs to send another more evidence that you actually need this so we can cover it. So this is why Luigi Mangione had a lot of supporters, because our healthcare system is a shit show. It's absolute garbage. It's just absolutely terrible. I mean, living in Russia, I mean, it's just pennies compared to what in the US we have, even when you pay for it, because they have state-funded hospitals and then they have the private ones where you pay a little bit, but it's rational. You're not in debt for your whole life. If you get pregnant or if you get sick or if something happens. And we're talking about Russia, like it's supposed to be a less civilized country than the United States, according to Europe and according to the West. So that's part of it. If you can just scroll down, the general social programs are basically going to be capped in funding. So everybody's talking about that. Everybody's complaining. But what I really, really want to get to here is the other aspect of this. The fact that it's going to be more about DARPA. If you can scroll down to the defense section, and because we're just not going to have time. There it is, all about defense. Okay, so let's take a look here. This is AI and autonomous weapons. Look at how much we're sending for AI, right? 145 million for a one-way attack drones and naval systems, 250 million for cyber command, AI development or cyber warfare tools, 125 million for test resource management centers or simulated battlefields, 2 billion for defense innovation units for AI autonomous tech for military use. We don't even know exactly what this is, like exactly what they're going to be doing, but we do know they're going to use AI, and it's going to be probably classified private military use. 500 million to prevent delays in autonomous systems, expendable drones and robots. So clearly we're heading into the Star Wars drone wars here, the beginning of that at least. And if you can continue scrolling, Jayme, there's a couple things I want to point out. Guided cruise missiles, space and surveillance. So 7.2 billion for military space-based sensors for tracking hypersonic missiles, satellites, communication, more billions and billions for more satellites, 1 billion for the X-37B space plane, 528 million for space situational awareness. I mean, this is insane. Keep going. I'll just go through this quickly. So here it is, DARPA and cutting edge tech. 100 million for DARPA casualty care research, battlefield medical tech, 20 million for DARPA cybersecurity program, 750 million for modular nuclear reactors, powering remote bases. That's crazy. Remote means not on location. 90 million for reusable hypersonic strike tech, 250 million for quantum computing, cryptography, and sensing. We're talking about technology that most people don't even know is around. The hypersonic defense, the missile interceptors, the hypersonic defense systems. Look at the amount of money. I mean, these are numbers I know, but look at the amount of money we're spending on this, right? 2 billion for nuclear armed sea launch cruise missiles, escalates nuclear posture, because what we need right now is more nuclear weapons from the United States. But Iran, they better not be working on their own nuclear weapons. How dare they? We're going to be working on them though, for sure, clearly. And yeah, if you can just go down, I'm going to go. Did you want to say anything?
No,
so
I'm just
I know.
Yeah.
So there's the Israeli and Indo-Pacific, I think. So 850 million to replenish military stockpiles. It doesn't fully say it, but it's likely going to be Israel and Ukraine because these will come in separate bills. Most of the time, it's already been allotted for, and they're just putting it in here where that's going to go. 101 billion for bases and airfields near China, because how dare China put their country near our bases. 365 million for army exercises in Western Pacific. more deterrence against China. This, let's be clear here, and 200 million for Guam missile defense against North Korea and China. So, I mean, so not only China now, it's North Korea, right? And cyber and electronic warfare, 1.69 billion for more military cryptographic modernization, encryption, decryption. This is intelligence and probably, of course, in line with Israeli. 1 billion for offensive cyber operations, 187 million for F-16 electronic warfare upgrades, jamming enemy systems. This isn't, by the way, a coincidence with Iran happening. Naval and unmanned systems, if you can scroll that way. If you can scroll up, Jayme, on that one. And 4.6 billion for submarines, more vessels, underwater vessels. I mean, it's just insane. 250 million for wave-powered underwater drones and persistent surveillance. And if you could continue to scroll up on that one. And nuclear modernization, this one's pretty scary. 4.5 billion to accelerate B-21 stealth bomber production. Why would we need to do that? Do we plan on going to war soon? 2.5 billion for Sentinel ICBM program, nuclear missile replacement. 750 million for nuclear warhead modernization, sea launch cruise missiles. So we're really focused on the nuclear aspect of things, but also via the AI. And if you can just scroll down a little bit, this is one I really wanted to talk about, the border militarization. Because when people talk about the border issue, they think it's just about immigrants and Trump being this bigot and all of this, but it's actually about the surveillance, as we have said on both of our shows constantly. Look at this, 1 billion for DoD border operations, including detention of migrants on military bases, counter narcotics missions. Why is this involved in this bill? Because they're going to use that technology to do it. And if you can continue scrolling. So yeah, I mean, look, you're looking at cyber warfare, the next phase of war, right? It's not just going to be regular bombs. It's going to be drones, which we're already seeing on the fields in Russia, Ukraine. It's going to be these high-tech missiles. It's going to be cyber attacks. It's going to be, of course, more of the hypersonic missiles. And you're going to see the focus again on China and also Iran. And there's no mention of Israel. But when you talk about who is going to replenish stockpile, Israel's going to get it, or Ukraine. And it seems like Ukraine isn't getting much more of it, at least not as much as they were. So everything is going to go to Israel. And let's see if there's anything else I want to cover. If you can scroll a little bit. Here it is. There is no new aid to Ukraine. It does include, once again, the replenishing of articles, arsenals, stockpiles, and drones. Because so basically they're using the same type of weapons, or replenishing the same type of weapons that normally go to Ukraine. So you can deduce, even though they don't flat out put it there, that it's going to go to Ukraine. And again, these bills are in Congress anyway, so they end up there. Russia, they don't name Russia, but again, they're funding technology that is used against Russia to counter the quote unquote Russian threat. And you can go down, I'll show you what I mean by that. It's the ICBM defense is going to target the Russian Zermatt ICBMs and hypersonics. And so the space-based missile sensors are going to attack the Russian hypersonic missiles. So they're building the counter for the Russian missile, which is the Kinzhal, and also the fight for the Arctic, which is interesting. And they're talking about not talking about sanction, but they're talking about cyber operations, which ultimately do end up targeting the Russian networks. And by the way, just offhand, Telegram translation hasn't been working, and that is very sus to me that it hasn't been working right after all these sorts of things happen. And a lot of the news, a lot of developments come between communication between Americans and Iran comes through that. And so for Iran, again, they don't mention it, but they basically are funding systems to counter the Iranian proxies. So the counter drone tech against, which is critical against the Ansarallah and the attacks on the Red Sea. They have $350 million for countering Iranian naval threats in the Persian Gulf, and $5.6 billion for space-based missile defense, countering the ballistic missiles that attack Israel. So they got their bases covered mostly on this. I think that's pretty much it. I mean, you can actually go to the nuclear side. They're focused on the nuclear warheads, and which are meant to deter Iranian nuclear ambitions. So when I look at this tech and I look at the surveillance behind it, right, it's kind of like, to me, it tells us a little bit about where we're going geopolitically. It tells us where this is normal for the U.S. to continue replenishing their stockpiles, to continue their buildup, but it's intense. I think the last one is this Palantir one, because they don't explicitly name Palantir, but we know very well that they're involved in the Trump administration. But they fund. They mentioned the programs that are funded, where Palantir is a contractor. So if you scroll down, you'll see some of these here. $400 million for Joint Fires Network, which is Palantir's AI battlefield management system. For example, Gotham and Apollo are also likely contenders. You have the $200 million for AI-driven audits. Palantir already holds Department of Defense contracts for financial and logistics AI, so they're already in there. And then you have Cyber Command AI. Palantir cyber intel tools are already widely used in this space. So again, I just wanted to give a quick rundown, right? There's a lot of things in there. I'm going to put it in an article for everybody to make it easier, but I thought it was important to break it down, because I think geopolitically, Matt, you can see where our focus is. As we've said, Russia, Iran, China, and what's happening now. Really, I think Iran should be looking at this, and Russia as well. And even China, because we're talking about the South China Sea and the expansion there, and saying, okay, well, this is where we're going. Do you think war is inevitable at this point? I think, because I see that's our focus. Like, when it comes down to the numbers, when it comes down to the defense, it's only a matter of when, not if, I think.
The maintaining this empire, as it's falling, as the empire falls, maintaining it as long as possible is the key, and the way to do that is through war. So there's this paper trail, and thank you for breaking that down for everyone, because understanding that you're 100% right. This is the focus. The focus is how many wars can we get moving. And I have to tell you again, Palantir, Alex Karp, his number one agenda on policing the world is doing a three-pronged war. This is why these are all listed here, are unofficially listed, but we know where the targets being China, Russia, Iran, on behalf of Israel and the Western Empire as it falls. And so, yes, it's inevitable. Are they going to be able to get all of it done? I hope not. But certainly some of it will be, and the money's there. And when we look at, and also to say this, the breakdown beyond that, you're not going to see a very detailed budget. You don't have to. You just have these little bullet points, which you showed. Then they don't have to show us anything else. And we know our Pentagon has a history of failing audits, right? We know that we had $2 trillion missing at that. What was that audit that happened to be? Didn't that happen to be way back on September 10th? That's right, September 10th, 2001. There was an audit of the Pentagon, $2 trillion missing. Oopsies. And then, of course, the next day that story got buried, obviously. So looking ahead, no, we're not going to get a breakdown of where this goes. We know absolutely Palantir is getting a substantial amount of this, because we're talking not just about the nuclear money going to nuclear, money going to the border, but it's the AI technology. This is the pre-crime stuff. This is the surveillance stuff. This is the war stuff, the actual war technology coming from Palantir. It's already incorporated with the IDF. It was key in the targeting that Israel did to Iran to target those negotiators and murdered those guys before when we started off this whole 12-day war. So all of this is already being done, but to see those numbers, it's infuriating. I think we looked at like a grand total. If you put all of it together, it looks like it comes out to roughly 320 billion. I think that's a pretty accurate assessment. But again, the breakdown you showed we're not going to get any more details than that. That's as much as we get. Those details are in the bill, so people understand it's in there. The people voting on it can see those things. Are they reading every page? No. They admit they don't read every page, but they have enough time. They can put a half hour aside and look at that basic breakdown that you just demonstrated. And so when you look at somebody like Marjorie Taylor Greene, who has said out loud that when this went through the first time it went through the House, she says, yes, I voted yes, but I missed the part about banning state level AI regulation for 10 years. I didn't know that was in there. If it was, I would have voted no. But what was in there, Marjorie Taylor Greene, was everything you just showed us, Fee. It was exactly all this money going to all these things. So you were for all that. You just didn't want the states to be locked in to Palantir, or locked into the not having the opportunity to do any sort of particular banning in whatever state. You're saying that part upset you, not the part about 320 billion going to war. That part was you were fine with. And so to wrap it up, going back to how you started this, the left being upset about this, they're missing this altogether. They're talking about the Medicaid cut. The Medicaid cut is 625 billion. The SNAP cut you mentioned, that's about 300 billion. The student aid, I'll throw that one in there. Student aid cut 351 billion, tripling the budget of ICE. So they talk about those things, and of course the standards, the stuff we know. We know the standard stuff, blocking access to Planned Parenthood, and deregulation of federal oversight. This all these things that we know are always going to be the bullet points of right-wing agendas. They're mad about those, as rightfully so, but they don't talk about the military spending. They don't talk about the AI regulation. The one thing that got Marjorie Taylor Greene upset, they don't talk about those things. But why not? Why not? If your point was to prove that you were right, we all should have voted for Kamala. You were right. You don't want to go in for the kill and say, look at what Trump's doing. The non-war president, the guy who ran on being a peace president, just put $320 billion extra. We already have that. We already have billions of spending on military. You just increased that budget by $320 billion, and nobody on the left is complaining about that part. And there's a reason why, because they're also in line with the war machine, particularly Ukraine, and sticking it to Putin. And they seem to be on the fence about the genocide we're actively funding in Gaza.
Yeah. And that's the point, is the people outside, inside the uniparty, they can't talk about the defense, because if they talked about the defense stuff, then they'd have to hold themselves accountable as well. So they're not going to talk about it. We're talking about the politicians, the people in power, but it's also people who are political when it comes to the left, right? The progressives, they're not talking about it either, because they don't generally care about foreign policy, and they don't see how that affects their domestic policy. They don't see how that connects. Why do these billions in war connect with what I'm doing, here in New York, or here in Minnesota, or here, wherever the hell you are? And it actually is all entirely connected, because all of these technologies that we're investing in, or that are completely basically intertwined with our government, with people like Alex Karp and Palantir and DARPA and all of this, are essentially being used at war, but they're also being brought into the domestic arena to be used against any sort of dissident that is now suddenly going to be labeled a domestic terrorist. And that began a few years ago, of course, after the election and COVID. And now we're here. Then it was the Russia-Ukraine war, and now we're here with Iran and Gaza and Israel. So now this is where we are, and all of that's going to be used against us. So if you think that all of this doesn't matter, that it's just, external factors that aren't going to affect your everyday life, I think you'll come to a very, very hard understanding from falling and hitting the ground hard, that it actually does, and it actually will. And it's the initiation of what we call, the fourth industrial revolution. This is it. This is it. The what people have been talking about, this tyrannical existence, this technocratic empire and takeover. That's where we're pretty much going, and they're spelling it out, but nobody reads this shit. I mean, it's boring. It's legal jargon. You even to get to those parts, you have to look deep. You have to use search engines. You have to use these people have assistants to do it. They break it up in parts and they don't read it themselves. This is how our government works, and it's entirely dysfunctional on purpose, and it's functioning for the right people. And it is a scary, scary time. Like I said, I'll post that up, and sure, be mad about all the other stuff, but really, this is telling us a blueprint of where we're going when it comes to our geopolitics, and it looks like we're going to war, like a heavy, heavy war. Soon, or in the next few years at least. And that's probably going to carry on from administration to administration. So
it could be sooner than that, Fee, if they have this, false flag thing ready to go this weekend. The sleeper cells, we could be gearing up for this right away, as they told us back in 2000 at the Project of a New American Century. We all know that happened 1 year and 1 month before 9/11, where they all got in the room and they said, how can we get the American people on board for a war like Pearl Harbor did? What can we need a new Pearl Harbor. That's what they said. We need a new Pearl Harbor to manufacture consent for the American people. It accelerates. You need an event to accelerate it. If you don't have the event, it takes several years to get people conditioned. You can do it right away with the 9/11. You can do it right away with an October 7th. You can do it right away with whatever if anything happens this weekend. It'll certainly get people's attention enough and say, what do we need to do to get revenge on the people that did this to us? Which is that's the playbook. So you can accelerate it and you can get this going right away. Not 2 years from now, but either way, I think you're right. It's inevitably heading to then. It's just a matter of when, not if.
Yep. Exactly. And Matt, this is all connected to the next thing, because now we're seeing people who are speaking against genocide be labeled evil, be labeled terrorist sympathizers, completely just vilified by society in the establishment, not just in the United States, but in the UK. We have seen the persecution of those speaking out against the Gaza Holocaust. And recently there was a Glastonbury festival, which I had zero interest in ever. But I've been looking at it and looking at what happened in the last, few days. And the reason I want to mention it is because everything's being blamed on one person, and it's all in the news. But the amount of hatred that Israel has garnered for itself is beyond one celebrity. It's literally a lot of people in this entire festival were speaking about Palestine, and we're speaking about what's happening in Gaza and lending support to them, and basically calling out Israel for what it's done. And I think it's important to point this out in relevance to the fact that is looked on as so dangerous, right along with the Intifada comment, right? But the genocide, which is actual violence enacted every single day, is ignored in our society. And this is not normal. And I think we've grown to accept it as it's normal, and we need to not do that. So this is from Eye on Palestine. They said on a tweet, artists at Glastonbury continue to use their platform to speak out against Israeli genocide in Gaza. This was displayed by Fountains DC during their set, and you can see in the video, if you can post that one, It's a 7-second video. I don't want to play the video that says beep to Israel because several people have gotten their streams taken down. This is how bad it is, right? You can't play a video that says that because you're just going to get your stream taken down. So I'm not going to play that video, but this is one video of that. There's the next video or the next tweet. It says at Glastonbury Festival, American musician Mark Ribble chants F Netanyahu, F the IDF. And so that video has also been going around. You can play that one. I think it's fine if you play that one.
Fuck Netanyahu! Fuck the IDF! Free, free! Free, free! Palestine! Free, free! Palestine! Fuck!
So there's a post here by Palestine Deep Dive. It says, musicians Bob Vylan refused to back down, call for dismantling the IDF. The musicians Bobby Vylan, who caused the media storm at Glastonbury by initiating a chant of death to the IDF, have refused to back down in the face of widespread attack by the British media and Israeli lobby. In a statement posted to Instagram, they wrote, "We are not for the death of Jews, Arabs, or any other race or group of people. We are for the dismantling of a violent military machine, a machine whose own soldiers were told to use unnecessary lethal force against innocent civilians awaiting for aid, a machine that has destroyed much of Gaza. This defiance in the face of a smear campaign, which has gone into overdrive, is being welcomed by pro-Palestinian activists. The media and Israel lobby groups have tried to present the chant as anti-Semitic, conflating the IDF with all Jewish people, something which is in itself anti-Semitic. Such libelous claims have been repeated by the BBC and Glastonbury Festival itself." Bob Vylan added, "The more time they talk about Bob Vylan, the less time they spend answering for their criminal inaction." So that's the thing. It's not about these people. It's not about this one guy. It's not about this one band. It's about what Israel's doing. And so instead of any sort of accountability, they deflect to, oh, but look, do you know what they said? And it's just so tiring. And then people are so sick of it, Matt, that I think they're responding like, yeah, we don't care anymore. We're going to say what we want because it doesn't matter anymore. And you know what was nice to see is 20 and 30-year-olds literally dismantling this Israeli propaganda, dismantling this idea that Israel is loved and powerful and popular, dismantling the idea that they're victims. It was very nice to see that at a festival where usually political things don't get talked about at music festivals like this. So I thought that was actually a good thing in all we've seen.
Oh yeah, no, this is an incredible thing that we've seen, and no one's talking about the crowd reaction, like you mentioned. The crowd reaction is the key. That this isn't just an independent artist that went off the rails. This is a crowd that was there to represent the Palestinian people, represent humanity, represent peace, challenge terrorism, which we know is what the IDF does. They are a terrorist organization. So the call to dismantle it is a noble thing. And like you said, taking off the, we have these cushions on us sometimes. We have to be careful about, after, if you go back to October 7th, when that afterwards, like we had to be very careful about challenging, but do you condemn Hamas? Well, yeah, but you know what? People are sick of having to go through these little cushions and maneuvering and just say what you need to say. And what we need to say is, and to be very clear, no one's calling for the death of Jews. Nobody's doing that. That's not a thing. And free Palestine doesn't mean kill Jews. From the river to the sea doesn't mean to kill Jews. None of it does. And so they're going to say whatever we say is that. So you might as well say the thing you want to say, which is stop the real terrorism, which is the IDF. And there's time and time again, countless examples of how they are trained, what they're ordered to do, not just this latest reveal. This has been going on for years and years. The way they are trained to pillage, murder, rape, go through all of these, target children, target women, target journalists, But it's worse than that, because they do this targeting, and then they go through their houses, and they find things that they think is funny, like putting on lingerie and posing for their Instagram and TikTok. And oh, that's too far, guys. Hey, guys, don't show off all your horrible war crimes and crimes against humanity. Don't show it off. Be more like Nazis. Nazis didn't show those things off. They actually were a little more careful, and they knew that it would look bad. So be more like them. You're actually worse than Nazis right now. So that's the conversation we're having with them. That's what Destiny going over there and saying, hey guys, tone it down on the posting, but keep doing your horrible crap. So getting up on a stage at a festival and saying enough of this terrorist organization that is literally committing a genocide and celebrating it in real time and not having any consequences, that needs to happen. And then the result of that, we need to report on. The result is you punish the people doing that. You protect the IDF, which the media, the American media, the British media, Western media is protecting the IDF and punishing people who are speaking out and challenging their terrorist actions. That's the real story. And we saw the pushback. We saw, oh, these guys no longer are allowed to perform anywhere. They're getting pulled from every concert. Their U.S. visas have now been revoked. They were supposed to come here to the States October, November. We were going to go see them here in LA in November. Not going to happen now. Guess what else? Oh, there's a criminal investigation being launched against them in the UK. So there's that. So all that happens, but nobody pays a price at all. If you're part of the IDF, if you're supporting Israel's massacre of the Palestinian people, there are no consequences for that. And celebrating it while you do it, there's certainly no consequences for that, because we have to protect the feelings of those soldiers that have such a hard job to do when they go in, murder, rape, kill, and gloat about it afterwards.
And not only do they not get any consequences, they often get the red carpet rolled out, like Netanyahu. Netanyahu gets the red carpet rolled out. The Israelis who were captured and then released, they also become the only victims that exist and talked about by the media. And to me, it's insane that we're talking about violent words against Israel when we're the ones that are perpetuating a genocide in Britain, well, along with the United States as well. If you can post that, Jayme, as you mentioned, Matt, the State Department revoked Bob Villan's visa over this performance. And like I said, you can't talk about death to the killing machine and you'll be banned, though. But but you can 100% get the red carpet rolled out for you if you support Israel. And if you are Israeli, or if you are Israel, the Washington did just approve more money for them, by the way, $510 million. And so it's insane. And this is again an artist doing it in another country. It's not even the United States. So why is the United States prosecuting people or going after people, revoking visas for them talking about standing against an Israeli genocide in another country? What is it about? Again, we go back to what is it about Israel and it's not just the United States, it's the UK, it's all Western powers and even beyond Western powers, that you can't say one thing about Israel. That is the red line. It's to me, it's almost like indescribable. People, this is why there's so much hatred then. This is the only people cultivating that hatred that you guys see in these concerts where people say, and it's not even, it's not about Jews, but when they talk about Israel, they're talking about what Israel is doing, the machine, the military apparatus that is being used to kill children while they're waiting for aid. That is what is being talked about, because it's exacerbated more, that hatred, because of the fact nothing is done, and the censorship and punishment of those who speak out against it is in a way creating actual hatred for everybody in Israel, or everybody with any tie to Israel. So you are going to see some hatred. You are going to see some incidents, but it's literally because there's no accountability to that.
Isn't it interesting that the remarks that we're issuing, that our State Department is issuing, is saying we don't tolerate people glorifying this type, violence. And it's like, that's exactly what Israel's doing. That's what the IDF does, and that's what they're indoctrinated to do. That the chanting, I've seen chants over and over, death to Arabs, over and over, all throughout Israel. There's one that was just in New York, just they're going down, they're in Hebrew, they're yelling out, death to Arabs, death to Arabs. We're going to burn down your villages. We're going to destroy you all. There's children in Israel being trained. They're singing songs about murdering everyone in Gaza and taking back our land. Little kids singing these songs. So you talk about glorifying violence, and our State Department saying we don't tolerate that. It's such a backwards, bizarro, it's more than ironic. It's so twisted. It's so sickly twisted that we have to put a statement out like that and then go, oh wait, you're not. You're talking about the artist on the stage saying enough terrorism from the IDF. You're talking about them, not the people who've been saying death to Arabs this whole time. Those people are fine. That's not glorified violence. No.
Yeah, let's go ahead and play this, Jayme. We'll skip the other two. Let's go ahead and play this. This is literally that, Matt. Death to Arabs by Israelis. That's allowed.
Yeah, totally fine. Wow. A good Arab is a dead Arab. Wow. Wow. Palestine's dead. Wow. Death to the Arabs.
So that was before October 7th, clearly a few years before. I just want to say it's that you see the hatred that there is specifically for the Palestinians, specifically for, they say Arab people. There wouldn't be any chance of death to Israel if it wasn't for what Israel has done, even when Israel has been doing this in a slow way, for a long time, for almost 100 years. There would, in spite of that, right, after October 7th and after what they did, there really weren't there. Before that, there wasn't that much. There were people that were aware of what was being done with Palestine. There was a lot of anger. People who were involved in resistance, who were pro-Palestinian already, might have said, yeah, death to Israel, and that in some sort of way they might have chanted that, in private sessions, or in West Asia. You would have heard it in the Middle East. You would have heard it in certain groups, but you wouldn't hear it openly in Britain being chanted. But after Israel did what they did their genocide, has done their Holocaust, has attacked Iran, has attacked Lebanon, has attacked Syria, and pretty much everybody in the region, there is now just this surmounting pushback. So if Israel hadn't done what they did, if they didn't go and kill innocent people on the daily, you wouldn't even be hearing that, but you would still be hearing the chants of, quote, death to Arabs. You would still be hearing all of that, because that's how they've been feeling about these people for decades. So one is a response to that, and it's targeting the whole system as a whole. that is killing them, and the other one is specifically targeting people.
Yeah.
And that's the difference that, of course, we're not even allowed to point out or even entertain. So
Well, so we talk a lot about, being on the right side of history. And I think that's the thing that, we've sometimes we have to stop and take a breath and go, we can't believe the world is so backwards and so mixed up, and the wrong people are being punished, and the other people that are getting away with it should be the ones being punished. Everything's backwards. But history, being on the right side of history, means at some point we'll look back and say, what time did we live through where people get away with this? And when you look at, the chanting on the stage, that we're saying, no, this the whole crowd was into this, and now these guys are being punished. That will over time, that will be the one we look back and go, that was the courageous thing to do. And the clip you played at the beginning, because I know you can't play the actual clip because there will be problems, right? But the one you played, that was a response. That was hey, what you did was good. We're going to take it from here. And I think that was another act. I think the guy's name was Mark Rebier, who went on stage, because this was a 4-day festival, and went on stage after that incident and said, we got your back too. We're going to keep the chanting going and be on the right side here. And I do think that, down the line, there will be we have to live through all these movies right now about, Nazism and Holocaust, one after the next, and Tarantino doing a What If We Killed Hitler movie. I'll say this, like, when I was seeing that happen, the death to the IDF, what analogy I thought of the movie by Tarantino. I thought of the Brad Pitt character from Inglourious Bastards that everybody cheered on. This alternate reality in which a team went in and killed Hitler in real time, and this character would outright say, "I'm here to kill some Nazis. I'm here to kill some Nazis. That's what I'm doing." And the audience cheers. They love that, because there's this idea of punishing the most horrible stuff that anybody could imagine, punishing it, saying out loud, "That's what I'm here to do." And it's so interesting that that's a movie we celebrate now. So I look ahead and I go, I wonder what character will be representing the Brad Pitt of a generation, 30 years from now, 50 years from now, will be chanting in a movie about now. And what if we stood up against the IDF? What would that look like? So that's, I think of that. I think of the long term, about just being on the right side and knowing that, we stand behind humanity, and we stand behind doing the right things, even if it costs you your career, even if it costs you a visa, even if it costs you, whatever it costs you, you're on the right side. And that's what I think Bob Villain has done, being on the right side and won't back down. And we applaud that.
yeah, and not only everything that you mentioned is correct. It's the fact that it is the same thing. When we talk about Zionism, it is a fascistic ideology, and the only way to combat it is to then treat it as such, is to treat it the same way people that now treat the idea of Nazism, and how they look at Nazis, as terrible. Well, the only difference is one is masked by religion, and the other is not. It's a superiority, fascistic ideology, rooted in supremacy, right? And so it doesn't matter that it's being masked by this idea of religious ethnicity and so on. The reality is it's equally as fascistic. They're doing the same thing, and the only difficult thing for us here is that we have to now counter the fact that the religion was previously, the ethnic part of that was previously the victim to Nazism. And so it makes it harder for us to be able to freely go after it, for the world to accept that they need to go after it. But there is no other way. When you talk about fascism, it is an eternal fight. I mean, people have been on this earth forever fighting, this ideology of supremacy, where one group of people supposedly deserve to not live, and the other one does, and the other one is the chosen people. This goes back just everywhere, and so it should be combated in that way. So when you compare that, that's absolutely what it should be compared to, because that's what it is, and people need to realize that. And unfortunately, for us, it's harder because of that. I think people are going to see, like, in the future, looking back, like, just how difficult it is to talk about it when you're told that they're the victims.
Yeah.
And so it's almost worse in that way, because you were able to unite the world against Nazis, but you're not able. It's become very difficult to unite it against Zionism. However, they're doing it themselves. They're uniting people against themselves by their very actions. That they're not denying their actions. They're very, very open about their hatred. And so that's there for the world to see and to take on. And it's also the fact that the United States is giving millions and millions of dollars for more weapons to Israel, for Israel to continue killing people, to continue to decimating an already decimated people that's starving. And and that's even placed by the Times of Israel. Jayme, you can go to that one. You can show people. The Times of Israel has even admitted the United States is giving them more money. Meanwhile, we have situations in the US. This is why so many people have developed this hatred towards Israel itself, because why is Israel getting all of this money? Where how do we have money for them? What is going on here? And you're giving them money for them to continue bomb kids, to continue to bomb people that are in refugee camps receiving aid. So how is this okay? I thought the president was America first, and I do think that there's some MAGA that have left, but I also think that there's a lot of exaggeration with that. I think there's still a lot of people on the right that think that Israel is an American ally and should be defended. So I think they're just not as loud because it's now shameful.
There's a third group in the MAGAs. Let's give a little bit of acknowledgement to the ones that are still kind of living in this over-optimistic delusion that Trump has this 60 plan to stick it to Netanyahu at some point. So there's that. So maybe they'll come around and say, you know what, this is a sinking ship. This is something that isn't working, and it never has. Way before Trump, this has always been our this is our policy. We give to Israel. That additional money you just put up, that's insane. Where are we getting that from? We're already giving them all this money. We talked about the big beautiful bill. They have free healthcare in Israel. Where did they get that from? Oh, that's from our money. That's right. As we've been sitting here having these debates, these very dishonest debates about why we can't afford it for our people, we've been giving it to them the whole time. So there's that on top of it. So this thing's been going well before Trump got in, and I hope more MAGAs wake up to it. I think some of them are still holding on, but I don't think I don't know what the percentage is that are actual Zionist MAGAs. Those obviously they're kind of hopeless, but there might be enough that are still in that process, and we just hope having these conversations can help steer them in the right direction here and say enough of this.
And Matt, it's not over, because the U.S. State Department is also giving them, the Department of Homeland Security is giving them $94 million in grants to combat anti-Semitism. So if you're a Jewish org, you will receive some form of grant to combat anti-Semitism, which is going to basically mean a lot of Zionists who are already self-victimizing, even though they're not the victims, are not held accountable. They have zero accountability, and they're just going to continue hating Palestinians and calling themselves the victim, while Israel gets more money to genocide them. So everybody connected to Israel gets money. So this is why I say we're past the point of voting, because to me it's like, I don't understand how this is fixable. I just don't buy it. I don't think it is. So that's that. I don't know. It's
combating anti-Semitism. Oh, you mean dismantling the IDF? That could help combat Oh wait, that's not where that money's
number one.
No. Yeah,
that would be number one, really.
Yeah, if you want to really do it. Like if you really want to, in medical terms, you don't want to just mask the problem. You want to get to the cause, right? You got to do a little surgery, not just a Band-Aid. So you want to do $94 million in Band-Aids, whatever that is. Meanwhile, we still have a cancer. It's called Zionism. It plays out militarily is the IDF. So you really want to combat anti-Semitism, you can go do some surgery there and get the cancer out. That would be my take, if that's where the money's going. I don't know, but that's just me.
I agree with you there. Number one, That would be it, but they don't care because Israel has even admitted that their own soldiers shot dead Palestinians at the Gaza aid distribution sites. So they've admitted this. The Israeli military often does admit what they do. It's just like the West, the US doesn't care. So here it is, an article from Press TV. The Israeli army spokesperson, if you can post that up, Jayme, the Israeli military has admitted that the Palestinian civilians were shot dead by soldiers at 8 distribution centers in the Gaza Strip. An Israeli spokesperson confessed that Palestinians have been harmed and incidents are under review by the competent authorities, which will not find them guilty. A report earlier this month by the Israeli newspaper Haaretz reported that Israeli soldiers were ordered to fire at unarmed crowds near food distribution sites in Gaza, even when no threat was present. I will repeat that. Haaretz reported that Israeli soldiers were ordered to fire at unarmed crowds near food distribution sites in Gaza, even when no threat was present. I don't know about you, but that's literally clear murder, targeted assassination, and in the numbers that they have been done, a Holocaust and genocide. That is literally what the SS did to Jews, right? We're talking about just bam, 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 we're just going to kill you, even though you have done nothing.
This isn't a one-timer. This is just them admitting this one. This is what they've been doing the whole time. We've heard countless accounts of this, of people walking miles with bags to put flour in, and they don't get the flour because they're getting murdered. They have to run away. This happens time and time again. Even if the aid gets there, they generally shoot down the aid workers first before it even gets there, and they confiscate it. So there's so many. This is time and time again. This is not a one-time incident. I hate how we have to show one-time factual incidences and then be told, oh well, that's just a one-off. That's just a bad. Oh, that was just a. Oh no, this is over and over and over. We also got a word that they've admitted to the U.S. and Israel have worked together in taking the aid from some of these outside organizations, saying, no, we got it from here. And then they go into the flour and they put opioids inside the flour so that people that actually get the food get hooked on opioids and then die of starvation anyways. That's another thing. So just time and time again, stuff they're admitting to, it comes out, and we see this. And I don't know how many times we can report on this before people wake up and say this is a system that's not that is designed to annihilate these people. And they I think they admit it because they can always fall back on their thing. And we go back to the fear concept that Palestinians mean to inflict pain, mean to hurt Jews, mean to annihilate Jews. So we have to stop them. So if they're going to get nourished and well rested, and then they might be more likely to be Hamas, and the younger kids are going to grow up to be Hamas, and then they're going to murder us. So they can justify every one of these actions, and that's why they have no problem saying this out loud. And then what did they say at the end? Oh, it's under investigation, blah blah blah. But investigating yourselves. Yeah, okay. Yeah, let me know how that goes. But it's the same thing over and over.
It's super frustrating. I mean, these are people trying to get aid. It's not even, they can't even use the hospital scenario anymore. So now they have to admit it because they can't, use that scenario. So hundreds of Palestinians have been killed, as you said, while they were picking up food. According to the UN, 600 Palestinians were killed trying to access food under the U.S.-Israeli aid distribution mechanism in Gaza. And so they're supposed to go through this whole Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, which is complete and total bullshit, guys. You have the United States and Israel helming this. You think it's going to be anything substantial. And now you have a supposed ceasefire coming between Donald Trump and Hamas. Do you think that ceasefire is going to mean absolutely anything? It's going to mean absolutely nothing. It's going to be controlled by the same people who started this in the first place. It's going to be like the first one. Israel will not respect a ceasefire because they have clearly stated that they want Palestinians gone completely. As you said, it is about annihilating these people, exterminating them. That is their goal. They haven't steered away from that goal. The only people that try to lie to themselves that they aren't going to do that are Americans and government officials who think that somehow this is going to work, including the UN, that thinks like there can be some sort of two-state solution to this when clearly one side wants to exterminate the other. And so it doesn't matter what Hamas agrees to. Hamas can agree to giving Israel whatever they need. They're still going to try to exterminate Palestinians. And that's the truth that we're really facing. I want to show Marwa's tweet. If you can, I don't know, maybe she took down her page because it's not coming up. If not, just the next one. Yeah, oh, there it is. The massacre at the Gaza Beach Cafe today defies all language. It shatters the soul. This relentless, cold-blooded genocide has numbed you all into silence while Israel continues its spree of killing, burning, and obliterating lives without pause or punishment. How much more blood must be spilled? That's what we're just saying. Before people in the West wake up, when will you finally rise and hold your governments accountable? Right? When? I don't know. Those same governments funding, arming, and shielding Israel as it wipes out an entire people in broad daylight. When? And there's a photo below. If you can scroll up to, I think the photo, and we can show it's a warning, graphic content. Okay, so we're just gonna.
Yeah.
So this is a journalist. She survived, by the way. She survived, but you can see she was severely maimed. And these aren't even the worst photos. I've seen some horrific photos. Pieces of people, pieces of children at aid distribution centers. People, as usual, Israel targeting journalists. We saw them targeting entire families in Tehran not long ago. They don't stop. It doesn't matter. It's not just Gaza they want to exterminate. After they get through Gaza, they're going to go after everybody else that's left, and that's the whole point of Greater Israel, right? So, yeah.
I mean, the list is so long. I mean, just what they're doing in the West Bank, that alone should be like international outcry. Just that, but like what we're seeing. Another targeting a journalist, another massacre. This is terrorism. There's nothing else. If you can't use this as an example of what terrorism looks like, this is it, and it's targeting particular people on purpose, over and over again. And the ceasefire language doesn't matter. We talk about this 60 days, yay. I mean, we've already lived through this. How many times do we have to go through this garbage celebration moments that mean nothing? Israel and the U.S., the West, are the most guilty at breaking any deal we've ever had about anything ever. So anytime you see a ceasefire in place, just know that it's not real. This is like I don't know what to compare to, like a husband and wife, and the husband keeps cheating. No, baby, I promise this time I super duper pinky swear I won't cheat any. It's like, oh, he said he won't. So it's like, just look at the history. Look at the history. Every single time you break the deal. So what are we celebrating right now when these atrocities are happening every day? These acts of terror are happening every day, and nobody is being held accountable for it. It's absolutely disgusting. Absolutely disgusting.
Yeah, I mean, what else can we do other than point them out? It just feels like, we're not doing enough. It's like, we can go to these places, we can talk about all these things, but at the end of the day, they're still going to keep doing it. This is why I think it's so important to get the American people to realize that the war machine is also against them, because I think that's the only way people will care. And along the lines of Gaza, I wanted to point out something as well regarding Iran. If you can go to the Iran, the next one, you can skip Jayme and go to the Iran, because we haven't really talked about Iran and what happened since, but I just want to point something out about this, because it's not about only Gaza. It's about the way that Israel is using us and we are using them in a certain way to really take over the entire region, right? And this is what Donald Trump said, right? Because they're painting a reality that isn't valid. In spite of all our weapons, in spite of everything we did, Iran managed to really, really hurt Israel. And they didn't even go as far as they could have, and they never do, right? But Donald Trump said a few things. He went off on Khamenei. And if you can scroll down and show his tweets, He said, why would the so-called supreme leader Ayatollah al-Khamenei of the war-torn country of Iran say so blatantly and foolishly that he won the war with Israel when he knows his statement is a lie? It is not so. As a man of great faith, he's not supposed to lie. His country was decimated. His 3 evil nuclear sites were obliterated. And I knew exactly where he was sheltered and would not let Israel or the U.S. armed forces, by far the greatest and most powerful in the world, terminate his life. I saved him from a very ugly and ignominious death, and he does not have to say thank you, President Trump. Yeah, I mean, I can't even read this without laughing because it sounds like a middle schooler wrote it, and it's just he's having a tantrum. I half the time I wonder if Trump writes this, and I actually do think he does. Because of how I hear his voice in it. But yeah, he's just going off, and basically saying that Iran needs to do XYZ or things are going to get worse. And this is the part that irritated me. They are always so angry, hostile, and unhappy. And look what it has gotten them. A burned out, blown up country with no future, a decimated military, a horrible economy, and death all around them. They have no hope, and it will only get worse. I wish the leadership of Iran would realize that you often get more with honey than you do with vinegar. Peace. After bombing them, while they were going to negotiate on nukes, on nuclear deterrence or whatever. After bombing them, after Israel bombed them, after this whole thing happened, after Gaza, after everything that's happened, it's Iran that are always so angry and unhappy and violent, and there's nothing about what Israel has done from Trump, and I didn't expect it, but I expect people to just more forcibly say, "What about Israel? What about Israel?" Why are we ignoring the big elephant in the room that is Israel and what they're doing? It's just the evil Arabs. It's always the evil Arabs, but here we are having tea with a terrorist, actual terrorist that we have funded to coup Syria, and having dinner with Netanyahu, who is probably the most hated person in the world, I think, at this point, for what his entity has done. And, Donald Trump is just yelling at Iran and threatening Iran. It's just this is after. I mean, where do we go from here? I don't think anywhere but war. And we need to wake up as Americans. Marwa's statement, when are we going to wake up? I think says a lot. That's the question I think we're all asking. When is that going to happen? As I always say, Matt, when it affects our pockets, I think that's when people will maybe do something about it.
We should just stop paying attention to Trump's tweets. They're all ridiculous. They're all crazy. They're all based on nothing but feelings and sensationalism. And we got to remember he's this number one game show host. Even when he wasn't number one, he still was number one. And that's the thing. That's what works. That's why he was hand selected by the deep state to be the mouthpiece during this time, this critical time where we needed to go back in and take Syria. We need to start war with Iran. We need to do these things. We need to keep funneling money into the warmongers' pockets and raise this up to a 3-pronged war, as Palantir likes to champion. So with all that, these tweets, they are, if we take them for more than just sensationalism, and we try to take them seriously, that's when we get way too, like, I'm way overreactive hearing this thing. And I have to say, look, let's stop paying attention, because everything in that, none of that makes any sense. I mean, the part about it's that he saved Soleimani's life, it doesn't make any sense. That isn't what happened. Even the Israel minister, Katz, he has admitted on camera that they tried to assassinate Khamenei back when they took out those negotiators. So they did actually target the negotiators that were supposed to sit down with Trump, that they had the meeting planned for that Sunday. That was after, they didn't, the 60 days expired. He said that retroactively, but the meeting was scheduled, and Israel assassinated the 4 negotiators. They're gone. They don't exist. And their families murdered too. They were trying to kill Khamenei that day. they failed. So Trump did not have anything to do with that. So for him to gloat about it and take credit for it now, it's just, again, a reminder that we have to stop taking what he says seriously on tweets, because he's not actually the one calling the shots. He really isn't. He's just the junkyard dog barking really loud when they need to, let him off the leash. That's it. But he doesn't really make the decision.
I like that. I like that comparison. The junkyard dog barking off the leash. That's actually a really, really apt comparison to him. No, yeah, you're absolutely right.
They take him off the leash, but he's still in the cage. So it just looks terrifying when he runs at you. But he gets to the cage and he's like, rah, 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 but he's still in the cage because he's still got his, So that's all.
He's just a carnival barker. Somebody posted. No, he's just barking away. And he said something about Vietnam today, and it doesn't make any sense. It's like everything he says, you can't believe, right? You have to take with a grain of salt, because he's out there to spew a narrative, to throw red meat at his supporters, to push this PR propaganda he's pushing. But what people need to look at are the policies, the documents, the things behind the scenes. And the last way to end this stream, I know we've been going for a while, is to revisit the Abraham Shields, which is under the Abraham Accords. So I'm just gonna read quickly what it is tasked to do. And it is tasked with expanding Greater Israel via the Abraham Accords. The Zionist administration, we're talking about the Trump administration, right? That administration is, as we've been saying, going to expand Greater Israel. And that includes the Abraham Shields Plan. And that was created by the Coalition for Regional Security, which was established just a year behind October 7th. And it's part of an attack against Iran, essentially a larger Iranian plan. And the first goal is to actually close the front in Gaza, establish a technocratic transitional government with regional backing. And this will be a service to Palestinians. So when we talk about a ceasefire, this is where we're going, right? And this is going to mean that this ceasefire that we're looking at is not really going to be a ceasefire. And I want to remind people of this, since we're talking about a ceasefire again, what that's going to look like. And as I said before, it sounds like a very Gestapo type of plan. And it's going to establish a bilateral agreement with the U.S. regarding the security operations. It's going to use the UAE, the United Arab Emirates. It's going to use Saudi Arabia, all in a way to isolate Iran. It's going to impose zero cash in the Gaza Strip, advanced monetary supervision mechanisms. And again, this is part of the ceasefire you're going to see. And it's going to, of course, have the goal of subduing Lebanon. What we're going to do is we're going to see the war start up in Lebanon again. We're going to see Lebanon come under fire. And their plan is to destabilize any Hezbollah formations there and to stabilize the Lebanese government, which is largely already captured by the West there, because you have Hezbollah within, but it's not, the only sector there. And like I said, after the fall of Syria, this is why they're doing this now. And there's going to be a full-on plan to block Iran, to continue isolating it, using the Gulf and relying on these proxy networks. And so I just want to also point something out. We don't have time to talk about it today, but Azerbaijan has been going after Russians. It's been torturing them. There's this scuffle between Russia and Azerbaijan. And what it does seem is that Azerbaijan is aligning with Turkey, is aligning with Ukraine, and is aligning with Israel as another front to kind of act as a NATO front to once again also attack Iran and Russia in another way, because these are, again, a more Arab states, but they're different. They're pro-West. And so what you largely have is yet another front that's developed in Azerbaijan, where they're trying to isolate Russia. they're trying to use these surrounding areas to create barriers for both Russia and Iran, to put it simply. We're not going to go deep into it now, but it's something we should be looking into, not just as to what's happening locally there, but what it means geopolitically for the future. Because I think we've talked about, NATO, Eurasia. It's not just going to be that. They're going to continue their push against Russia till the very last moment. And one of the things people need to understand about Putin is he has a personal, I would say, emotional connection to Israel. He grew up with Israelis. So there is like a Russian connection to Israel. However, Russia, I think in other facets, does understand where this is going. I mean, the Turkey will always choose the United States. Israel will always choose the United States. And there's a lot, I think, to be said as to where this is going to go, what decisions are going to be made, actually in the back channels of everything, not just what we're hearing up front, but what decisions are going to be made. Because Russia, at the end of the day, is being targeted by some of its allies, like Turkey. Turkey is supposed to be a neutral player, but it's never been neutral. It's always screwed and thrown Russia under the bus. And so it'll be interesting to watch all of that develop. So keep a lookout in that area right there, because it's getting pretty hot on that. So
yeah, I don't think there's much going to be. We're not going to be able to celebrate much on this, as it's just these positionings of, mentioning this breakdown of the Abraham Shields with this, like this is going to provide civilian services to Palestinians during a transition period. I get real it reminds me of when Trump put out that horrible image of the Trump Tower, Trump Hotel on top of, this is what we're going to rebuild. We're going to do something good. We're going to make this work. We're going to do, the art of the deal. And you're just like, this can't be good, just because you're repackaging something that, has murdered so many people, displaced so many people, destroyed so many lives. All we keep doing is going around destroying, governments, destroying civilians, civilizations. And I just don't see that there's anything here to be celebrating anytime soon. And I think that, keeping an eye on Russia and Turkey right now is important. And it's hard to predict what's going to happen next, but this is a tough time we're in right now, Fiorella. I don't know. I'm just glad we're having these discussions and talking about it, because things happen so fast and people need to remember historical context and the details of these things, because the mainstream's just going to keep giving you these one-shot bullet points, clickbait. But we want to have these more thoughtful discussions. So, man, it's a lot to process, but we covered a lot today for sure.
yeah, we did. We covered a lot, and then almost 2.5 hours, Matt. So thank you for joining me, and I hope that's enough for you all to really watch for the whole week, because I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, 4th of July. And if you are out there, I don't know, be careful. I don't know what's going on. I haven't been in the US for a 4th of July in a long time, so I'm probably going to be one of the most annoyed people on here for now, just seeing a lot of the patriotism. I just can't do it right now because of everything that's happening and everything our government and our military is doing. How could I possibly stand by that, But there's a lot of that, and regular, normal people celebrating whatever. I think that's probably going to be very difficult for me. Besides that, everybody, I guess, enjoy the long weekend if you have it. And Matt, where can people find you and anything you got going on?
Yeah, so Friday's 4th of July. We're actually taking off. We're heading out Friday early morning. We're getting out we're just going down to Rosarita, Leslie and I. Nice. We're getting out, but just don't want to be here. And there's so many weird things about being in LA right now. I just want to get out. But before then, people, we're packing in a few things. In fact, in about 15 minutes, I'm going to be going on with Garland Nixon. If you guys want to go join me over there, we're going to be discussing on Garland's show. So we're doing that now. And then if you guys want to, we'll do one more episode of Homeless Left. That's tomorrow. As Craig is out right now, Pasta's recovering. I'll be having Kit Cabela, Hardlands Media, on to guest co-host with us tomorrow, noon Pacific. And then, that's our last show. Then we're packing up. We're getting out for the rest of the weekend. And then we'll see you guys back next week, and see you back, our next time together, Fiorella, next week. Hopefully we get through this weekend, however we need to deal. But,
Yeah, I hope so too. And if you guys want to take a look at Substack, I posted some new things there. I'll also post a quick write-up on all the stuff on the big, beautiful surveillance bill. That's what I'm going to call it. And and also I'll starting a podcast called Critical Perspective with Manessa Bealey. So that should be up on YouTube very soon as well. So keep doing that. Keep speaking out. Keep questioning things, and keep fighting for the truth ultimately, guys. So we'll see you next time. And for Pasta's sake, we'll say truth out. Bye.